Hello everyone, and welcome to our final video where we're focusing on Sketchbook Designer. And in the first 6 or 7 videos, what we looked at was the creation of our character Sven from a conceptual stage all the way through our final character. In this video, what we're going to look at is the creation of the views we need for image planes so we can get this into Maya and we can start modeling our character. And we want to welcome back Dave Bentley. And so let's get right into it in Sketchbook Designer.
All right, thank you very much, Chris. So one thing you're going to want to do is use symmetry. I also brought in these grid lines, which are part of Sketchbook Designer, so I can very easily decide how high the shoulders are, the head, and do that, I guess, intelligently, quite honestly. Now, using symmetry, I'm able to very quickly establish the proportions and get an idea for what the actual size of this is going to be in the end. So I'm not sure if I like where the arms are, so just by simply selecting it with a lasso and using the rotate tool, you can change the pivot point for where that is and get an idea of the proper length and proportion of the arms.
Yeah, I guess one of the things I've learned, Dave, is just having a pencil sketch character seems to work the best, that you don't need a full color character to do for your image planes for Maya, because it actually gets hard to see detail at that point.
I completely agree. It's really easy to see just the black and white pencil sketch, and it can be frustrating with too much detail. So I also went through and fixed in my Wacom settings, my pen alignment. It was just a bit off. And now it's just kind of going through and trying to redraw what he looks like from front view and clean up the lines, make sure it's going to look nice. Definitely you'd want to do this on a separate layer, and the point of going digital is having layers, I think. And it's just a matter of kind of cleaning it up. I'm not worrying about doing the right to left side yet. I'm going to mirror that at the end because I've already got my proportions figured out.
You know what's interesting, it's the workflow you're showing here, just as we're doing the 2D views before we're working more on perspective, is it's almost the same workflow as when you created a silhouette.
True.
And one of the things too, just to recap, the grid tool, you could have left that on. Even so, as you're doing your other views, you can easily leave the grid lines on. So that would be very similar to in Photoshop, where you can bring out the guidelines. You can use the grid tool within Sketchbook Designer to help make sure that your proportions are correct from view to view, etc.
Truly, yeah. And you don't need to use just the horizontal grid lines. There's also radial grid lines. There's a number of different things which are very useful for perspective sketching. So I'm turning it back on now, just as you were saying, to get my side view and make sure it's going to work out.
So exactly, I know this video is a little sped up, so give the students an idea. How long do you think this took you to do, just to develop these sketches?
Well, knowing that I already had the final character figured out, it was just a matter of getting the pencil lines down. So maybe 5 minutes to maybe 10 minutes per sketch, but I doubt it. It's probably closer to 5 minutes a sketch. And I generally do one view, like the side view, where I'm just kind of trying to capture what the shape or the design is. I know it's messy. I know it's not going to be something I keep, but I'm just trying to hog it out so it can be as ugly and disastrous as you really want it to be, because you're going to hide that layer eventually anyways.
Now that was really cool how you use the transform tools. So you lassoed it in and you can adjust things, same as you did the arms. I mean, that saves time because you didn't have to resketch that. You just said, I want to change this, change the angle, done.
Definitely. It's just a rough sketch, and I don't mind messing it up and whatever it might be, right? So eventually I noticed this head is too big too, so scale that down and fix it right now before I spend the time.
That fits right in with Halloween. Remove the head.
Thank you. It is Halloween.
For a minute
time.
there, we had the headless Sven instead of the headless horseman.
Oh dear. And so yeah, the rest of these proportions are fairly accurate, so I can just go right ahead and clean up the line work. I don't need to draw the arms. It would just be in the way for a side view, so I just put where the arms come out of the shoulders. And a quick idea of what the rocket pack is on the back.
Yeah, and one thing I also like about the rocket pack also back there is when, as we start getting into the model, that's where some of the seams for our UV textures can go, is behind the rocket
Yes.
pack actually. So, I'm that's another thing to take into consideration. Even as we're doing this, we're even starting to think about modeling and also how we would UV map him and separate all the meshes.
Completely. Another thing that's interesting is when you start doing a front view, side view, back view, you will come up with, you'll start recognizing where things might be misaligned or things might be a bit more difficult. And in the side view in particular, looking at those straps, that was something I thought, wow, how do these really roll around his pecs? So I'm doing the back view, and I'm just doing it directly over the front view to make sure I really nail the proportions properly. And having a good idea of what real human anatomy is, obviously is going to help more than anything. Yes, he's a cartoon, but he's got real human bones and scapulas and muscles, and you need to make sure those are all in there, or he will look funny.
So that's an interesting point you just brought up. So as the students are going through schools, definitely take a sketching anatomy or study sketching anatomy. I know there's a lot of resources online as well as classes they can take around that. So I've been learning quite a bit also that it's very important to understand muscle flow, etc., all the way through the entire process.
Muscle flow when you start modeling is incredibly important. It also obviously is important as you draw. I think an anatomy class, a gesture sketch class are just intolerably important. You could also go to the zoo, you could go to coffee shops, go to the park, and spend some time drawing people. And just try to capture their emotion and their proportions, and you'll learn plenty.
Now, one of the things to pay attention to there is how powerful the symmetry tools are. I think people underestimate just how powerful they are in Sketchbook Designer, and they can be your best friend here and save you a lot of work.
Oh yeah. And at this point, I'm just laying out my views, making sure I keep them horizontal so the scale's all still exactly where it should be, because that'll be useful going into Maya, making sure these planes are the same size.
Awesome. Well, Dave, we thank you so much for your help with this part of our series. So in the next series, we're going to look at bringing in the image planes into Maya to get ready to start modeling our character, Sven, for our game. We'll see you in the next video.
Thank you.